You may not know sometimes the danger does not lie in a remote place, but right in the heart of the brightly lit city, because there are hidden corners that urban lights are never bright enough to illuminate. Just a few blocks from City Hall, right in the heart of what was once hailed as a model of sustainable development in the American West, there exists a homeless camp called the Forbidden Slum. Police don't even dare to enter. Yet behind that opposition is a contemplative story of a society that is letting thousands of people fall from its safety net, of a system that no longer seems capable of withstanding economic upheaval, and of a state on the brink of collapse. Arizona, from a symbol of stability, has now become the harsh test of the American dream. Today's video will take you deep into the truths that the whole city is trying to hide, where only makeshift huts, trash piled up, and never-before-told stories remain, about people who once had a normal life like you and me, now forced to exist on the sidelines as if they themselves had become the sinners of the era. At one time, Arizona was mentioned as the promise of stability, a land where idyllic Americans, retired workers, veterans, people who spend their lives working, come to open a peaceful new chapter. They flock to Phoenix, Tucson, Flagstaff, not to seek quick fortune, but to have a small roof, a quiet garden, and sunny afternoons on the porch, where old age can pass gently and safely. But if we look deeper inside this state, you'll probably see something has cracked, silently but clearly. Residential areas are surrounded by old cars parked close to the sidewalks, streets that were once clean, now glimpsing makeshift tents, wanderers lying on the sidewalks, and lost eyes as if they are not sure where they belong. From 2012 to 2020, Arizona rekindled positive signals. More than 5,000 homeless people have found refuge, and the dream of a stable, livable state seems within reach. However, after the COVID-19 pandemic, everything was gradually pushed to the bottom of the abyss. As of 2025, more than 14,700 people in Arizona no longer have stable shelters. Compared to giants like New York or California, that number may still be small. But for Arizona, a land once known as a place to avoid storms, for those who want to escape the expensive rotation of the big metropolis of, this is a shock. You can feel it through old RVs crowded into Walmart parking lots, through long lines of people waiting for free meals in Tempe, or through the whistle of ambulances through the night to rescue lives from the heat. 110 degrees Fahrenheit burned just because they didn't have a canopy. The crisis is no longer hidden. It exposes right in the middle of the streetlights, right before all of our eyes. The American dream in Arizona did not disappear immediately. It faded away through letters announcing rent increases, through calls for support that had been on hold for too long, through the fatigue of the already overloaded social welfare system. And the most worrying thing is, this is not just the story of unfortunate people, but is gradually becoming the story of everyone. Because if a place that was once considered the ideal place to dream of a stable life now becomes the starting point of nightmares, where else is truly safe for the rest of us? But behind those homeless numbers and makeshift tents, there's a quieter story than, and also more heartbreaking. It is the story of the people who were once the pillars of Arizona, who built the stability that the entire generation was once proud of. Now, they, the seniors, are in a wave of neglect. In the heart of Arizona's arid desert, the saguaro cacti, which once proudly stood through hundreds of drought seasons, are now also beginning to wither. That image is like a mirror reflecting the fate of thousands of elderly people in the state, who were once the roots of society, but are now being forgotten, as if their existence has expired. Arizona is facing a particularly severe homeless crisis among the elderly group. Many experts call this silver tsunami. It was a silent but violent wave, pushing thousands of elderly people off their roofs, simply because they could not keep up with the rate of rent growth that was far ahead of the rate of increase in social security payments. Most of those people live on a fixed income, ranging from $700 to $1,500 per month. This used to be enough to maintain a simple and stable life more than a decade ago, but now it's not even enough to pay rent for a shabby apartment in the city. Kimberly and Daniel's story is a prime example. She used to be an office worker. He is a retired electrician. The two add up to $1,500 per month, but that's still not enough to find a suitable place to live. Every day they have to choose between medicine and rent, and this harsh choice is becoming a familiar reality for thousands of seniors in Arizona. According to data from Central Arizona Shelter Services, currently more than 1/3 of people in temporary shelters are elderly. Not only that, Arizona ranks second in the entire United States in housing eviction, an alarming reality for a state once considered a retirement paradise, where generations believed they would find peaceful final years, has now become a destination for insecurities with no way out. Not stopping there, the elderly homeless are becoming the fastest growing group. Not only are they lonely, but they are also literally forgotten. Many of them have dementia, no longer know where to seek help, do not remember where they are, and are not capable of identifying the dangers quietly lurking around. According to forecasts, by 2030, the number of homeless seniors in Arizona could triple. While the public system is still struggling, charities like Central Arizona Shelter Services are trying to do the near impossible: turn an old motel into a shelter for the elderly, with 170 beds with medical services, counseling, laundry, and psychological support. But even the people who are working on this project clearly understand that is just a small drop in the middle of a storm. Because to save a generation that is gradually being left behind, society needs more than a few temporary beds. A whole system of intervention is needed that is earlier, fairer, and truly listens. Because those people, they were teachers, construction workers, veterans, and people who cared for and protected this community. Now, they are pushed to the sidelines again, like an old item no one remembers. And if even the proud saguaro cacti, that can stand through hundreds of years of drought, are now withering in silence, then are we also witnessing something more heartbreaking? This society is drying up its own memories and future. Right in downtown Phoenix, which was once hailed as the new technological oasis of the Southwest, exists a dark patch that people call by the creepy name, the Zone. There is no welcome gate nor clear boundaries, and this place is like a small initial crack that gradually widens, devouring a part of the city's soul. Hordes of makeshift tents crowded, old, dilapidated trucks lined up, and desperate eyes reflected in each other, all turn the area into a dead area right in the middle of modern urban areas. Many people may briefly think, surely the people in this place are lazy, unemployed, and don't want to rise up. But the truth is completely different. Behind the torn tarps and discolored trucks are people who still work every day, even harder than anyone else. Rebecca Young, a single mother, is a living testament to that paradox. She worked as a waitress in the morning, then continued her shift in the evening at 2 consecutive jobs, but still couldn't afford to rent a roof. Instead, Rebecca and her young son live in an old truck. They shower at gas stations, eat from volunteer meals, and learn how to take a nap in the burning heat of the Arizona summer, where multi-day temperatures hit 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Rebecca is no exception. According to a report by Shelter Arizona, 1 in 4 people living in shelters still have jobs. But the average salary in Phoenix is below the national level, while the rent for a 1-bedroom apartment has skyrocketed to $1,500 per month. With that income, people cannot live. They can only exist temporarily, struggling to cope with each day. Things became even more grim when the federal budget was cut, causing the shelter system to lose more than 1,000 beds in just 1 year. Non-profit organizations, already in short supply, are now forced to turn away new people. Central Arizona Shelter Services representative bitterly shared, "We saw a clear difference when we had enough budget, but without funding, the only thing we can do is stand by and watch more people get pushed into the streets." The zone, therefore, is not just a geographical area. It is a warning. When even the workers still don't have enough to hold onto the roof, the problem goes beyond the personal story. This is a system bug, an increasingly wide crack in the heart of Phoenix, and seems to be silently spreading across the United States. And if just an unexpected toothache, an unexpected medical bill, or a small accident on the road is enough to cause a worker to lose his roof, then we have to ask ourselves, the system, is this really protecting who? There's a paradox going on right in the heart of Arizona. Rows of abandoned houses lie dormant in the desert sun, while just a few streets away, thousands of people are struggling to find a place to sleep for the night. On one side are cold cement walls, glass doors sealed with ice signs, "For lease." On the other side are makeshift tents, old cars and tired bodies huddled on park benches. That image is like a distorted mirror, reflecting injustice in the way society is allocating its most basic resources: shelter. For the past 2 decades, Arizona has been a hotbed of the real estate boom. Many neighborhoods were built quickly in hopes of welcoming waves of immigrants from neighboring states. But after the economic shocks, part of it was left vacant. There are unfinished buildings, rows of apartments that were once advertised as modern amenities and are now places where birds live. Meanwhile, not far away, the number of homeless people increases sharply every year. Data from social organizations shows that the number of people without a stable home in Arizona has increased steadily over the years. Some studies suggest that maintenance, legal and real estate tax costs cause many investors to keep their homes empty instead of renting them out at lower prices. Meanwhile, the average income of workers in Phoenix is still lower than the national level, making the gap between rental price and affordability increasingly distant. As a result, MR residential areas sprang up and the streets were filled with tents. The solution, of course, cannot be based solely on temporary charity. A combination of government, business and community is needed. Abandoned apartments can be converted into affordable housing or community centers for low-income people. Large corporations, names like Home Depot or Walmart, are already widely present in people's lives and can fully participate in reconstruction projects, provide materials, support space, or sponsor welfare programs. This not only improves business image, but also creates a sustainable value circle for the whole community. Arizona's real estate crisis, therefore, is not just a story of lifeless walls. It is a warning that without change, we will continue to witness growing divisions. On the one hand, silent houses rot over the years, and on the other, people forced to trade their dignity just to survive the night. Do we dare to choose to put people back at the center, or will we let them be forgotten right under the shadow of vacant houses? Perhaps one of the bitterest paradoxes of the homeless crisis in Arizona and across America is the way society increasingly treats poverty as a sinful. Instead of being seen as a humanitarian and social issue, being homeless is often seen as a punishable misconduct. People who don't have enough shelter are pushed out of the park, banned from setting up tents on the sidewalk, and even fined just for sleeping outdoors, while they themselves have no other choice. In Phoenix, many residents have reflected that measures that preserve order sometimes just mean wiping the tents out of sight of the city's residents. Instead of tackling the root of the problem, cleanup campaigns only drive homeless communities from place to place. The police are required to enforce the law, but they themselves are in a difficult position, facing vulnerable people not with support, but with sanctions. This situation raises even bigger questions. Are we gradually turning poverty into a kind of unofficial crime? When the rules are not designed to protect, but to eliminate, the weak become double victims. Both lose their shelter and are considered troublemakers. In fact, many experts have warned that this approach is not only ineffective, but also makes the crisis worse because it cuts off community trust in the system, which is expected to be the ultimate platform. But in that gloomy picture, there are still other directions. Some cities in the US have tested the housing first model, which provides stable housing first, then supports job search, healthcare, and community integration. This is also an opportunity for big brands to accompany. Names like IKEA can participate by providing cheap furniture and designing small but convenient apartments for social housing projects. Or Walgreens and CVS, which are already present in most residential areas, can sponsor basic medical care packages for the homeless when they are resettled. These actions are not only volunteer, but also help businesses connect their brands with the community, creating a circle of long-term value. Because in the end, poverty is not a sin. It is the result of many fluctuations, from the economic crisis, rising cost of living, to the uncatching welfare system. If society only looks at poverty through the lens of violations, it is like tying itself to the cycle of failure. The only way to break that vicious cycle is to change your perspective. Instead of criminalizing poverty, see it as a cry for help. A cry for help that needs to be heard with empathy, cooperation, and even the courage to act differently. Arizona has long been famous for its harsh climate, but in recent years, the heat seems to come from more than just the sun. It also spilled over into the already fragile social security system, making many people feel as though every last layer of their protection is melting in the 45-degree heat. When summer comes, every plastic tent roof, every green tarpaulin that shades the sun on the hot sidewalk becomes a symbol of the exhaustion of a system that no longer has the power to shelter weak people. For decades, Arizona has been known as the ideal retirement home where seniors seek peace and warm, sunny days. But now, as medical costs skyrocket, rents escalate, and subsidies are almost stagnant, the picture is reversed. The welfare system, which was designed to lift up those in need, is now stretched to the limit. Many elderly people have to spend most of their social security to pay rent, only to no longer have enough for medicine, food, or basic living expenses. Some reports indicate that the number of people seeking emergency assistance centers is increasing. They line up in the burning sun to wait for free portions of rice, or cram into temporary cooling centers that are open for several hours a day. Charities describe that the need for assistance has outstripped the capacity to deliver, with many forced to return to the streets at nightfall. In the hot heat, a canopy also becomes a luxury that not everyone has. The problem here is not just the amount of money. Many experts have pointed out that the welfare system is lacking in flexibility. Support programs often require complex, overlapping procedures, while the person in need is not in a position to pursue the process. The image of older people carrying files, waiting for hours in the sun to apply for benefits, is a clear demonstration of a system that is no longer in line with reality. The solution, of course, cannot stop at temporary cooling centers or a few short-term subsidy packages. Arizona needs a more adaptive social security system, shorten procedures, increase connections to public health, and focus support directly on the most vulnerable groups. This is also an opportunity for large businesses to join hands. The most important thing is to change your perspective. Social security is not just a cost, but an investment in human stability and dignity. Because if we leave thousands of the elderly and the weak to fight alone under 45-degree heat, we will not only witness the breakdown of the system, but also lose the very measure of society's humanity. If even the heat of nature is predicted in advance and can be prepared to withstand it, then why is the smoldering heat from a rotting system left to burn for an entire generation? For decades, Arizona has been seen as a land of opportunity and peace. Peaceful neighborhoods, dark neighbors with lights out, and afternoons when the whole community attended summer festivals together were once a familiar image. However, Today, that picture is fracturing. The increase in homelessness, empty houses facing makeshift tents, and the sound of ambulance sirens running along the streets have caused many residents to begin to question, is their community still a safe place to live and trust? Community trust is inherently an invisible bond. The belief that everyone has a fair chance, that common values will be preserved. But as more and more people have to sleep outdoors, as peaceful neighborhoods have now become places of potential risk, that feeling begins to waver. Many long-time residents admit that they feel helpless, both pitying those left behind and worrying about the safety of their own families. This struggle makes the love between the village increasingly fragile. In the broader picture, this wobble is more than just personal emotion. It also affects how people view social systems. If churches, schools, and local governments are no longer capable of creating a sense of security, residents can easily feel abandoned. And as trust in both communities and systems declines, society falls into a dangerous spiral. The rich are separated, the poor are isolated, and the gap in between is widening. However, there are still green seeds of hope. A number of charitable organizations and small community groups have sought to rekindle trust. Free rice distribution events, self-organized neighborhood cleaning programs, or online groups sharing experiences supporting people in need show that the connection has not disappeared. It is important that these efforts be relayed, replicated, and maintained stably. The solution to restoring community confidence cannot come from macro policies alone. It needs the accompanying participation of the entire private sector. Big brands like Starbucks, with a network of stores covering all, cities can launch the Community Coffee Program, where customers contribute to sponsor safe breakfasts or spaces for those in need. After all, community trust doesn't just come from big slogans. It is nourished from small moments, a shared meal, an empty house reused, a hand held out at the right time. If this shaking lasts, the community will disintegrate from within. But if we know how to heal with empathy and concrete action, then even in the most difficult context, the community can still become a safe haven, both physically and mentally. Will we choose to live in homes with solid locked doors but broken beliefs? Or will we rebuild a community together where everyone feels they belong? When we look back at Arizona today, we see more than just homeless numbers, tent roofs, or streets struggling in the desert heat. It's also a mirror to the bigger question. If a place once called the Promised Land has now become the epicenter of despair, what does the American dream really mean for future generations? And perhaps the most important thing is not to find out who is responsible, but that each of us is willing to look straight at this truth and come up with solutions. If you have ever witnessed similar scenes in your own community, or have memories of a time when Arizona or America were once close-knit, safe, and full of opportunities, please share your thoughts under comments section. Who knows, maybe your story will be the piece that helps us understand better and find a way to rebuild trust. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so we can continue to tell stories that not everyone is willing to listen to. But everyone needs to be known. Every share is an opportunity to add one person who understands, one more person who cares, one more ray of hope to the lives that are lived quietly. The content in this video was produced with the purpose of informing, educating, and social reflection. We present public data, expert observations, and community stories, not to criticize or promote any policy, individual, or organization. Any information about laws, policies, or solutions related to homeless people should be consulted from appropriate official sources, authorities, and experts. The views and analysis presented in the video are overview comments of a reflective and exploratory nature, not a substitute for legal, medical, or social advice. Viewers are encouraged to think independently, discuss and consult multiple sources before making comments or taking action. We respect the human rights, privacy, and dignity of all individuals, especially the homeless. and commit not to increase stigma or discrimination of any kind.